1 in 3 people in Argentina was black African. Today, they're gone. This is how they were erased. 1810, Argentina was a black country. 30% of Buenos Aires was African. Enslaved people, free artisans, mothers, soldiers. They built the city, they created the tango, but Argentina's white elite wanted a European country. So they made a plan to erase an entire people. And it worked. First, the wars. When Argentina fought Paraguay, they conscripted black men first. Sent them to the front lines. Tens of thousands died. Then came 1871. Yellow fever swept through Buenos Aires. The white neighborhoods fled. The black neighborhoods were quarantined, locked in. Thousands died in their homes. Then President Sarmiento made it official policy. He wrote that Argentina needed to whiten itself. He invited millions of European immigrants, gave them free land. Black survivors got nothing. Then came the cruelest blow. The census started reclassifying black people as wheat-colored. With the stroke of a pen, they erased black identity. Black history was edited out of textbooks. By 1900, the world believed Argentina had no black population. The truth? They had been buried, conscripted, starved, renamed, erased. Today, 150,000 Afro-Argentines are fighting to be recognized again. The tango still belongs to them. The history still belongs to them.
I'm half Argentinian and half Brazilian. I love my heritage. I love our soccer, our traditions, the meat, the insane landscapes, and the culture. But loving a place means you don't look away when it's rotting from the inside. We have to call out the history, the government, and the deep-seated racism that everybody else in Latin America and the world sees, but we continuously deny. There's a major reason why a vast majority of Latin America and the world don't like us. Argentina is easily one of the most racist countries in the world. We are quite literally the Israel of Latin America. Argentina had one of the quietest but most violent genocides in African and indigenous history. Let's stop lying to ourselves. The white Argentina you see today was engineered. It did not just happen naturally. It was a calculated, state-sponsored project of erasure, built on the same foundations of displacement and violence and erasure as America or Israel. Before Europeans showed up, this land belonged to the Diaguita, the Guarani, the Mapuche, and dozens of other indigenous nations. And in the 18th and 19th centuries, African people were a massive part of our fabric. Enslaved Africans were brought here starting in the 1500s. By the early 1800s, black and mulatto residents made up a third of the population nationwide and up to 50% in some of the interior provinces. Where did they go? They didn't just vanish into thin air, they were systematically eliminated. During the Wars of Independence and the horrific War of the Triple Alliance, the state used Afro-Argentines as literal cannon fodder. They were pushed to the front lines to absorb bullets and die, decimating the male population. The black women who survived were forced to intermarry just to get by, accelerating the intentional disappearance of black identity. When the yellow fever epidemic hit Buenos Aires in 1871, the white elite packed their bags and fled to the wealthy suburbs. They left the poorest districts where the Afro-Argentine population was concentrated, quarantined, trapped, and left to die in overcrowded tenements. Out of the 14,000 people wiped out in a matter of months, the dead were disproportionately black. Then came the late 1800s, and President Domingo Sarmiento openly pushed blanqueamiento, aka the whitening. The government literally subsidized the migration of over 6 million Europeans, mostly Italians and Spaniards, between the 1860s and 1960s to dilute the surviving black and indigenous populations. At the exact same time, they quite literally erased black and mulatto categories from the national census, reclassifying mixed people as white on paper. If you don't count them, they don't exist. That was the logic. And the obsession with whiteness didn't stop there. After World War II, the government opened its arms to some of the most horrific white supremacists in human history, becoming the primary destination for the Nazi rat lines. People like Adolf Eichmann and Joseph Mengele lived out their lives hiding in plain sight in Argentina. Because of this brutal discrimination, systemic marginalization, and racial erasure, countless Afro-Argentines fled, crossing borders into Uruguay and Brazil just to find a place where black culture had a visible established footprint and they could breathe without being treated like ghosts or criminals. We see the legacy of this history every single day. We see it when our soccer fans and players yell vile, subhuman racist chants at Afro-Brazilian, African, and French players. We see it in the casual, ugly racism Argentinos export when they travel to Mexico, Bolivia, or Brazil. And we see it in our politics. Argentina also voted against a UN resolution declaring the transatlantic slave trade the greatest crime against humanity. Only 3 countries in the entire world voted against it: the US, Israel, and Argentina. The only country in South America to do so. Think about how deeply shameful that is. To every Afro-Latino, black, and indigenous soul watching watching this video, the pain you carry is not up for debate. For centuries, the system has tried to gaslight you into believing your history didn't happen or that your ongoing struggle is just laziness or lack of merit. The trauma of having your ancestors systematically erased from the history books while the world praises the European elegance of the country that buried them is a deep psychological wound. Even today, the system demands that you mutilate your identity just to be tolerated. When you're told to straighten your hair or cut off your locks just to look professional or clean for a job, that is the modern corporate ghost of blanqueamiento. It is an absolute disrespect and insult to your humanity to normalize the idea that the features you were born with are inherently unprofessional, sloppy, or lesser than. Your hair, your features, your skin, they are a living map of survival. Cutting them off to make white spaces comfortable should never be celebrated or viewed as a milestone of success. It is a forced compromise born from a racist blueprint that has been running for 500 years, designed to break your spirit and make you blend into a background that never wanted you there in the first place. Your existence is resistance, and your natural self requires zero apology. The root cause is a national myth of exceptionalism built on collective amnesia. Argentina created an identity crisis by convincing itself it is a piece of Europe misplaced in South America, and to maintain that lie, it has to aggressively reject its own geography and history. The root cause is a deep, fragile insecurity that protects itself with arrogance and denial. The government needs to completely overhaul the education system to put indigenous and Afro-Argentine history at the forefront, admitting exactly how the modern state was built. We need to stop hiding behind the excuse of it's just football passion or it's just a joke when people show their overt racism on the world stage. We have to kill the myth of a white Argentina. Until the country faces the ghosts of its past and actively dismantles the colonial mindsets that dictate who belongs and who looks professional, it will remain stuck in a cycle of global embarrassment and internal rot. And then people wonder why no one likes us in Latin America. The truth is already out there. Y'all gotta stop running from it.
Why doesn't Argentina call up black players? Argentina carries the reputation of being one of the most racist countries in the world, and if you carefully look at the national team squad, you won't find a single black player, and the reason will truly shock you. Unlike Brazil, where the majority of players called up to the national team are black and shine in both Brazilian and European football, in Argentina people talk a lot about Messi and Maradona, but rarely mention any black Argentine player who made a mark in football history. Black players have been sidelined, ignored, erased, and forgotten, and even when they reach the top, they receive little to no recognition or praise. It is extremely rare for a black Argentine to be called up to the national team. What's even more surprising is that in the past, Argentina had more than 40% of its population made up of black people. Today, Argentina is doing everything it can to look more and more like European countries, copying their culture, traditions, fashion, lifestyle, and even appearance, while black people are being systematically erased from its history, its media, and its national memory.
I am proud of being an Argentinian, but it's really hard for me because I always have to explain why I'm black.
Argentina has built its identity on whiteness, but Afro-Argentines are pushing to restore the country's black history that the government has largely suppressed.
There was a discourse of genocide because governments say that we don't exist. Schools erase us from history. So Argentina is said to be white, to be culturally and to look white, phenotypically white. So that's why it was discursive, because we are still here.
In the 18th century, large populations of Afro descendants were present in Argentina. In fact, hundreds of thousands of enslaved African people were forcibly taken there, long before the biggest waves of European migration in the country. But many of them say the country has built a national identity rooted in whiteness, making it hard to identify as a person of color.
People think that we don't exist. Argentine people ask us where we were born. Not only in Argentina. If I go to Brazil, if I go to Uruguay, if I go to the US, people don't believe my nationality. They don't believe I'm an Argentinian. It's horrible because I don't feel, or people don't make me feel as I am part of the country.
In 1778, black people made up about 37% of Buenos Aires. But by 1887, city records showed black people making up less than 2% of the city's population. Now that's not because they left or disappeared, but because the government stopped including race in its collection of census data. Race wasn't even included as a census category again until 2010. Many Afro-descendants were reclassified or absorbed into mixed categories. Ali says these racial categories blurred black identity over time.
There was a and a really important racial category that's called trigueño, that means from the color of the wheat. That helped black people to find a window to escape blackness, because why would you choose to be black in a country that oppresses you for being black?
But a younger generation is reclaiming Afro-Argentine identity, pushing for visibility and recognition.
If Argentina would reckon its black history, there would be some big changes. We would know that one of our first presidents was claimed to be black, Bernardino Rivadavia. We would know that the mother of the country is called María Remedios del Valle and was a black woman. We would know that tango is black. We are not Europe. We live here. We are from here. We have to stop thinking white and start thinking Argentinian.
Why doesn't Argentina call up black players? Argentina carries the reputation of being one of the most racist countries in the world. And if you carefully look at the national team squad, you won't find a single black player. And the reason will truly shock you. It's the total opposite of Brazil, where black players dominate the national team and shine across the biggest stages of global football. In Argentina, all the focus stays locked on Messi and Maradona. Black Argentine players who made their mark on football history are never talked about, never celebrated. They've been sidelined, erased, and forgotten for generations. Even when they climb to the sport's highest level, they get zero mainstream recognition. A black Argentine earning a national team call-up is almost unheard of. Here's the wild, underreported truth. Black people once made up over 40% of Argentina's total population. Now, Argentina is obsessed with copying European culture, lifestyle, and even appearance, while systematically wiping black people from its history, its media, and its national memory.
I'm sitting here watching all these TikToks about Argentinians being racist, and I'm pissed, bro, because I'm Argentinian, and at least for me, that couldn't be further from the truth. I've lived in the US since I was 5 years old, and I've experienced racism from every single culture. Did you know most people don't even know where Argentina is or what Argentina was until this World Cup? Now everybody knows the whole history of Argentina, and we're this and we're that. Don't want to talk about racist? I have been told by almost every Latino culture that I can think of that I'm too white to be Latina. Not because I don't speak Spanish, because I speak Spanish. Not because I wasn't born in my home country, because I was born in my home country. It's because of my skin color. So in my head, I'm thinking that's racism, because you're making an assumption based off of my skin color instead of taking the time to get to know me. You'd be surprised how this white girl has gone through the whole immigration process. This white girl has been told to go back to Mexico countless times. This white girl couldn't find a group to fit in high school or at work because I was too Latina for white people. I was too white for Latinos. Moved back to Argentina. I was too Americanized for Argentinians. Of course, there are beautiful, loving people out there that accept you as you are. And that's why I'm not a hateful person. And that's why I'm not a racist person. And that's why I don't spread hate and bullshit, because not everybody is the same. I literally had a whole post in high school with every culture talking about how white I was. They call me Casper. So I fucking put my profile picture as Casper because I guess I'm just a fucking white girl. And that's racist too, because I was hated on my skin color for being white. That's crazy. Like, how can you sit here and preach about how white people are racist and this and that, and you're turning around and you're doing the same exact fucking thing? Nobody learns. Nobody does better. Everybody's just the fucking same. Like, some people are racist, yeah. But you know what? There's racism in every single culture. You know how I know? Because I experienced it. So how about y'all stop pointing fingers at everybody else for being racist and start looking at yourselves in the mirror and realize how much hate you're contributing into this world, how much division you're creating. Instead of leading by example and leading with respect and with love, you're continuing to spread hate towards other countries. It's sad, really. Just do better. if you're seeing this, do better. Be a better person. Be a kinder person. That's it. That's all I gotta say.
Why does everyone hate Argentina? There are a few reasons, but largely because of their links to Nazis. It's a well-known fact that thousands of Nazis left Europe post-World War II and went and settled in Argentina. In fact, one of the most infamous Nazis, who was one of the key organisers of the Holocaust, Adolf Eichmann, moved there and lived under a false name until 1960s. Now, Argentina wasn't the only country to welcome Nazis after World War II. A lot of them fled to US, obviously, Canada, Paraguay, Brazil. There are other reasons that people are looking sideways at Argentina to this day. In the early 1900s, millions of Europeans came to settle in Argentina, mainly from Italy. To this day, it's something like half of Argentinians have Italian ancestry. And the government really wanted that. They actively encouraged more European settlers because they wanted to make the country, in their words, more civilized. And whilst all those white people were coming over and settling, the Afro-Argentinians were heavily marginalized and often violently displaced. So Argentina went from having quite a large black population to having barely any over the course of a few decades. It's now one of the least ethnically diverse countries in all of South America. And unfortunately, Argentinians do have a reputation of being kind of racist. Of course, not all of them, but especially people like black tourists and black football players. Have a Google, see what they have to say about their experience there. So in a nutshell, that is why people don't like Argentina that much. It's why people call it the Israel of South America, and it's why a lot of people don't want them to win the World Cup.